The real estate industry, globally, I think, is undergoing a rapid transformation where sustainability, technology, and international investments are shaping the future of the spaces we live and work in. During this panel, the real estate panel, industry leaders and visionaries will explore the key directions defining both the global and regional markets with a strong focus on real opportunities for investment and innovation. So I would like to invite on stage OANA Ijdelea, the managing partner of Ijdelea and Associates. BEATRICE DUMITRASCU, the CEO of the residential division of One United Properties, the biggest real estate developer in Romania. Aaron N. Block, the co-founder and managing partner of MetaProp. Craig NASSI, the CEO of BCN Development. Bob KNAKAL, the chairman and CEO of BKREA. And Mr. Ken M. Swig, the president of Swig Equities, LLC. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I will start with OANA, since she was the first to come here. So in your opinion, which are the types of projects most suitable for Romanian-American collaborations, let's say?
First of all, thank you, Raluca, for having me here for the second time. It's really a privilege. As a disclaimer, I chose this seat because it was not the first on either ends of the row.
She's a lawyer, so she always knows
somehow I got up
to
to be the first one, so it's fine. Now, looking at the overall economic environment, I would say that the traditional economic ties between the US and Romania somehow remain unchanged in the last 20 to 30 years. And here we are discussing in particular about infrastructure, energy, logistics, defense and security, telecommunications. Of course, on top of that, we also have large services companies, and IT and tech are picking up swiftly. We saw a lot of inward investment in Romania coming from the US and targeting Romanian tech companies or American companies which laid a foot in Romania to benefit from the absolutely wonderful skills and capabilities of the Romanian people. We are known as being extremely tech savvy. So looking forward, I think that this will continue to grow. And as Romania becomes more and more a proof of reliability in terms of the strategic partnership between the US and the targeted countries in the EU, I think we can only see a growth in that. Bearing in mind that currently the US is the 7th largest investor in Romania.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of growth, Beatrice, how is the premium residential segment in Romania doing? Because we've been speaking a lot about the real estate growth in Romania.
I do speak a lot about residential because I'm a fan of it. Thank you, first of all, for being here for the second time. And this event is growing every year, so congratulations, because you're doing a great job, you and your team. So, residential in Romania, it's something that is growing every day. Simona did a great job because what we don't have here in the United States is that nobody knows about Romania as a brand. It's a country which is evolving very much right now, and in residential, she already said that we have yields like 6 to 10. Why? Because if you buy residential units under construction, today in Romania, your investment grows at least 20% per year, which is huge. The taxation, it's good in Romania. We know that, yes, we had some struggles with the VAT and as well with the elections and so on, but nevertheless, we have to understand that in Romania, for example, I don't know in square feet, but I know in square meters to tell you that the average price is 1,750 euros per square meter today, which is a small amount of money if you buy an apartment between 150 or 200,000 euros plus VAT, because we talk in euros in Romania. And what is important to know right now is that we have at least a lack of 200,000 residential units only in Bucharest. You have to know that in Romania, Romanians are most of the time owners of apartments, like 95%, which means that, and the stock is very old. It's, everything was built before 89, which means it's a very old stock. And as well, you have to know that we need to improve the stock, and moreover, we have to take into consideration that we didn't have a market which was for people that wanted to rent. It just started to grow. In the last 3 years, the market grew also in the short-term lease, which we didn't have up to now. And what you have to know is that right now, we had a city that was blocked. So a lot of developments, because we didn't have too many developments, the price went up. And as we are concerned as a company, because I'm representing One United Properties, which is today the leader in the real estate development, we do residential hospitality as well. We are rehabilitating buildings that are old in the city, because we have a beautiful city with a lot of history. Office buildings, and as well we are opening the first Mondrian hotel right now. What is important for you to know is that Poland today has 3 times our price that increased in the last 5 years. We are behind Poland, 15 years at least. So you have to know that it's a country that can grow a lot in terms of investing in the residential units, because the residential is the easiest way to do it, because you don't have to have a lot of, I don't know, education on it. You just look at what happened in the last 5 to 10 years and you will see exactly what is going on. Us as a company today, we delivered like 2,500 units. We have under construction almost 4,000, but we have available for sale less than 950 units, which means that we are selling a lot due to the fact that there's no offer in the market. And again, I'm going back to Simona. If she's a real estate agent here and she knows exactly what happened here, and she came to Romania and she saw what is going on there, you can trust her that it's a very good market. I can talk for 10 hours about real estate, so I will stop.
You are a great ambassador for Romanian real estate. I want to go to Craig now and ask him, after this lovely speech, real speech from Beatrice, what do you think, since you are such a big investor in real estate here, what would you feel about maybe considering Romania? Yes, no, maybe?
You know, given what she was talking about and all the facts, I think any of us listening are like, wow, it's incredible. I have a lot of questions for her after the meeting here. But you know, the growth possibilities are phenomenal. It is a small country, homogeneous country, friendly country, well-liked. So it has all the components of being a safe place to invest. The growth that she's talking about is just amazing. It's really incredible. If I compare that to what's happening here in New York, some similar things in the rental market, more so than the purchase market. I see a lot of people are just out of luck. They can't find places to rent in New York City in good areas right now. So the rental market for free market, anywhere in the city, it seems, is very, very tight. The reason for that probably is related to mortgage rates, people waiting to purchase. People in New York, I think they see renting as almost an equal or better option than buying. Yes. There's a lot of lifetime renters here in the city. A lot of friends of mine since 20, 30, 40 years always rent, because you get a really good product for the money, comparatively speaking, to ownership.
What's your latest investment?
Right now, all we do is we're focusing on rentals. So from affordable, the majority of it, to some free market in the city. We're talking to Bob right now about a deal that's more high-end. It could be condo or rental, but it works either way. So we're always looking.
Thank you. And going to Bob now, I would like to ask, how has the real estate investor profile evolved in New York over, let's say, the past decade? And what lessons us, the emerging markets, could draw from that, if any?
Well, I think, I sell investment properties here in New York, and we've actually sold buildings to investors from 72 different countries. It is a very international market, but the profile of investment in New York has changed very dramatically over the past 6-7 years, mainly because most of our buildings are apartment buildings. And the apartment building market has completely changed because our policymakers thought that the solution to our housing crisis is to confiscate and limit what people can do with their own buildings rather than build new buildings, which is a big mistake. But what that has done is it has driven the typical investors in multifamily housing in New York out of the market. I would say that probably, in 2018, if we were having this conversation, I would tell you that all of my clients who buy apartment buildings will only buy in New York and won't buy anywhere else, and have done that for decades and decades. And today, 85 to 90% of those people wouldn't buy an apartment building in New York regardless of the price. They're buying in other places around the country, and that all started in 2018 when the politicians started talking about all the stuff that they were going to do that they actually did do in 2019. And what happened, there was always a difference in cap rate in apartment buildings in New York versus around the country. And New York City always had cap rates that were 150 to 200 basis points lower than around the country. Well, all of the New York capital got out of New York, started buying buildings in Florida and Tennessee and Texas and Arizona. And we saw cap rates around the country drop, and cap rates in New York went up such that in 2020, during the pandemic, it actually flipped. Cap rates were lower outside New York than they were in New York. And what has happened is that there's still 10 or 15% of multifamily investors that are still buying apartment buildings here. They're doubling down and tripling down, mainly because I think they were too late to the diversification party and said, hey, I have no choice. I better just stay all in and hope that things change dramatically. But there's a whole new crop of investors. The investor from Nashville who was used to buying at a 7 cap or an 8 cap and sold to a New Yorker at a 4 cap now has taken their money and come to New York, and they're buying at a 5 and a 6 and think that they really understand rent regulation. I don't believe that a lot of them really do understand rent regulation. But it's interesting how, I always say the investment sales market always has been, is, and always will be cyclical. And it's the same way with investor behavior. It ebbs and flows, and I think Craig is on the right path with what he's looking to buy, and that's rentals. And I think the opportunity is that our politicians all say they want New York to be more affordable for everybody, but everything they've done almost, with the exception of the 467M tax abatement program, but everything they've done has made it less affordable. There is a restriction of supply. There's no new supply being added. Supply is being taken out of the market, and that's why we've seen values in the rent-stabilized sector plummet by 50 to 75%. But free market apartments now, if you see buildings, I don't think there's a new building in the city that's renting for less than $100 a foot, and there are some that are $150 a foot. So I think you mentioned, if I did my math correctly of what apartments sell for, and I convert euros to dollars and square meters to square feet, it's about $150 a foot. Yes. $150 a foot to buy. We pay $150 a foot to rent in New York.
Come to Romania.
It's very, very interesting. So it's a very, very interesting and treacherous time in New York for investing, because some sectors, unlike anything we've ever seen before in history, some sectors are doing well and values are going up, and some sectors are doing poorly and going down. So you really have to, you can't paint the market with a very broad brush. You have to look very sector specifically at what you're talking about, but very, very challenging times today.
So this being a very challenging and treacherous time, I was going to, and I'm going to ask Kent about what are the most resilient sectors here?
Well, the resiliency of New York is very extensive and very good, I think, in general. The most resilient, I would have to say, in terms of longevity is residential. The commercial market on the super high end right now is very, very strong. I think our vacancy rate's probably about 7.6% on the very AAA product here. But in terms of real resiliency and strength over a long period of time, it's residential. And one of the reasons is just supply and demand. So we have 8.3 million people in New York City, right? And we have roughly 3.1 million places to live. Out of the 1.3 million places to live, you've got roughly 1,400,000 plus or minus places to rent. And then you've got a balance of things to buy. So there's 278,000 condos in all 5 boroughs. There's 376,000 co-ops. And then you've got about 1 million plus or minus 1.1 million things to buy, which are 1 to 3 family homes. So with 278,000 condos, Manhattan has, I think, about 114,000 condos. There's just no product out there. So, as long as you've got a population that's stable and increasing, you're going to have an issue with supply and demand. So I think, for one, residential is very good. Now we're being affected because of cycles, right? With the 1.3 million, the $1 to $3 million homes are having a bit of an issue. So we're seeing reduction in transaction volume because of interest rate climate. And that's pushing people into the residential market because they don't have a down payment as much, and they also don't have the sustainability to go buy and pay the higher interest rates. So that's, I think, so in general, I think the residential is a very, very strong area. To go to Bob's point, what we need to do is we need to build more affordable housing in the city, desperately. So, and it's, I think, a very simple concept.
How can you do that?
Well,
what needs to change to be able to do that?
Just an attitude. So if you have children, right, and if you tell your children, if you don't do this, I'm going to punish you all the time. It doesn't get very far. If you incentivize your children and say, if you do this, I'm going to give you this, or you get these benefits, you're going to get a better response. And I think the development community is the same. So what I would be looking at is take the largest boulevard or the largest street avenue in New York City, which is Queens Boulevard. It's got a very low density right now, and I would go in there and say, I'm going to bring, you can go up to 15, rezone it to 15 to 20 to 1 FAR, floor area ratio. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But if you do want to do it and take advantage of it, 50% of everything that you build has to be affordable housing. And what you'll find is that everybody will go out and build all the development around. And the city doesn't have money to go do things, but they do have an asset value, right? So they have all this air, which is like a bank, right? So if you take that air and you monetize it to the population, the development population, and what does it cost the city? Nothing. And you give it and you create value out of air, thin air, and you transfer it over to the population, the development population, in big, wide boulevards that can handle that kind of growth, and put a guideline of, say, 50% affordable housing. You'll end up with a lot of development that's going on because you've incentivized the population to do that. So those are the kind of things I think we have to look at and help bring that. Otherwise, we're going to be finding ourselves in a city with a super, super high wealth and super low income and nothing in between.
Isn't it already like that? I mean, I don't know. Aaron, you tell me. What's it like in terms of social?
I'm very fortunate. I get hidden in the tech world, a little bit away from the traditional real estate world. Everything we invest in is real estate-related technologies. And the tech world is booming here, despite what's maybe in some of the headlines about AI taking jobs from the lower-level folks. I mean, how many of you folks use AI, use ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Perplexity? Everybody's familiar, right? I mean, if we had asked that question a year ago, I'll bet you half as many hands would be up. If we asked that question 2 years ago, only a couple of people would have been raising their hand. And so I think that you are seeing a real renaissance of the tech community. I mean, Tech NYC, speaking of here in New York, is bigger than ever. The Romanian tech scene is very attractive. We're opening up an office this coming year in Dubai to cover EMEA startups, and Romania is one of the markets we know. We have friends who own property there. not as well-known developers as you, but it seems like an incredible opportunity for folks who are at the cutting edge of what is happening from an AI transformation perspective, like in places like here, to transfer some of that knowledge and to create new startups that are attacking emerging markets like Romania. I spent a lot of time in Central and Eastern in Europe. I lived there for 4 years and helped build a business and did a lot of real estate transactions there. And I smell the opportunity in Romania following what we're seeing here in New York and what we're seeing in Silicon Valley. So I'm very bullish about residential here, but especially for the growth industries, and one of them right now happens to be tech.
So how would you characterize Central Eastern European real estate market from your tech perspective to your fellow American investors?
Yeah, so we talk about Romania every day in my life. No, we don't yet have a chance to do that, unfortunately. Yes, and I spend every year. I'm on the jury of the MIPIM awards, right? Global awards, and sometimes from time to time we have Romanian projects that are up for evaluation. I will vote for yours, I promise. Pinky swear. And the Romanian market is lively. It's gone through some challenges over the years. The U.S. is going through no challenges whatsoever right now. I tried to walk.
None.
I tried to walk back to the office yesterday from a meeting at the Pierre, and I was walking down 6th Avenue past 1211. What's News Corp? 1211. The broker. You can't get the broker out of me. And there was a gargantuan protest that I was stuck in and could not get around. And we have our own problems too, right, on many, many levels of various opportunities. Romania is in the conversation because, in my world, because of the tech. So I see the projects. We know that Romania has an excellent tech infrastructure, as the universities has students, and has a VIG that can be gathered from tech companies hiring talent offshore. I think that bodes very well for the long-term play. I would love to make an investment in Romania. I haven't seen one. Please send to us. That is tech-enabled or AI-ification, agentification of the real estate space or construction and development space. We would love to do it because I feel like it's one of the few countries that has the recipe for potential success right now. So please send us all of your prop tech and construction tech companies to invest in Romania.
You heard him. So going back to OANA and changing the angle a bit, from your legal perspective, what are the main barriers that maybe keep Romanian high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals from investing in the States? Because lately there's been a lot of interest from their side, but nothing maybe so spectacular yet.
So I would say a consistent issue, but this is endemic to the Romanian legal system, is the access to land rights, because non-EU citizens still have certain limitations in that regard. So an individual cannot just come and acquire land. You would need to set up a company, which would be a Romanian entity, which then will be entitled to the ownership. Then I have to recognize that the regulatory regime in Romania is all over the place. We are overly regulated, highly bureaucratic. And this always deters investment. When somebody thinks of bringing their money to a new jurisdiction, they think, how can I make my life easy if I move from my place to a new place? And also, I would say that the fiscal instability, which is translated in the 30 to 50 minimum changes to the fiscal code, which is the backbone of the Romanian fiscal legislation, isn't helpful either. On the bright side, though, because I really have to flip to the page I'm here to sell to everybody Romania, we are a European Union country. We are a NATO state member. I believe that in the next 12 months, Romania will finalize its accession process to the OCDE. Hopefully, we'll also be back on track for the visa waiver program, which up to now, to me at least, is not clear why we have been removed from. But apparently there are strong promises from the State Department that they are gonna correct this, and this will be extremely helpful for everybody, not necessarily to help Romanians come easier here, because I think that the visa system itself and the immigration system works wonderful, at least in the US Embassy in Romania, but because it's an endorsement. It's an additional layer of trust which is bestowed on Romania as a country. And also, you know, from a very transactional perspective, I would say that people should look, and investors, not necessarily high net worth individuals, but global companies should look at Romania's potential. And coming back to what is closer to my heart, which is natural resources, oil and gas and mining. For example, Romania has an extremely untapped potential in terms of critical raw materials. We have magnesium, we have copper, we have lithium, we have cobalt. These are the types of resources that companies try to obtain and try to secure in a country as Ukraine, which is a war-torn apart country, regrettably. But why would you go there when, yes, there is the potential of investment, there is a potential of the business, but also there is the threat to security and to safety. While Romania has all this untapped potential, which could be highly beneficial. And, you know, at least if I'm talking about mining, these kind of critical raw materials are not the kind that are used, you know, and dig out of the ground using cyanide or using polluting technologies like gold and other precious metals. Also, the energy potential in Romania in terms of wind, in particular offshore wind, other types of onshore renewables, biomethane, carbon capture and storage, is great. To be honest, I don't believe in the dialogue that is now today everywhere in the media that President Trump had with Ursula von der Leyen, that EU needs to basically destroy the Green Deal. Moving towards green, I think, is beneficial, but you need to do it in a good way, in a way which actually supports the high level of welfare that the humanity reached in these times. So I would say this is the place to be, this is the place to invest. Look at it. The real estate market, again, speaks for itself, you know, and I would say that one, at least, you know, it's, I think, the only developer in Romania which did a proper type of development, developing from how the area should look like to the building itself. And they have basically reshaped the skyline of Romania
Bucharest,
with their projects.
Of Bucharest so far, and going across Romania as of this year, I think.
That's true.
And Beatrice, going back to you and to real estate, as Oana said, you've been walking around New York and seeing things. And what lessons do you think that, I don't know, Bucharest, Romania as a whole could learn from what's happening here in terms of, I don't know, high-rises, all kinds of real estate projects?
Usually, the developers I work for, they are very much paying attention to what is going on all over the world. So they are not looking at only investing in Romania. Now we are reshaping Bucharest, as you've said already, and we bought land in other cities as well, because we are looking for good opportunities so we can do great things in the communities that we are creating, because we are investing a lot in infrastructure. For example, there are 3 days ago, we have announced that we are building 2 schools, kindergartens and nurseries for the communities, because we do have a lack of this type of facilities in the areas. And we are going to spend like 6 million euros just for doing these 2 new educational buildings. And as well, we do invest a lot in the infrastructure. For example, we will invest a lot of 3 million right now just to do some roads between our developments, due to the fact that we are not always waiting just for the government to do things and to create the infrastructure. And the fact is that we learn a lot. For example, right now in Bucharest, we do have a lot of tall buildings that were built by One United Properties. And we do like to do high-rise just because we leave a lot of space and green areas, because if you do it sky-rise, you can have a lot of room for the people, for the community to use it for, I don't know, for all types of activities, starting from where to run up to the fact that we have commercial spaces everywhere at the ground floor, so the people can have everything they need around their facilities. So the fact is that we learn every day, and I've seen here a lot of tall buildings. These days I was going, we do good things, so we have to keep up the good work, because we do want to evolve. And you always have to see that you don't have to reinvent everything. You can go through the street and you'll see, I've seen something beautiful. You can replicate it and do it in your country. It's not about showing something rather than that you can do, and to optimize every year. Because 13 years ago when we have started to build, because this was the fact, in Bucharest, until one came to the market and they have the courage in 2010 to start to build, because the crisis was there and nobody wanted to build. They have started they started from a land where they decided to develop apartments, but to do something differently so they can catch up with what was going on in the other sides of the world. Big windows, because we were doing those communist windows small, with glasses all around the terraces so you can see more and you have more open areas. To build green, to have sustainable buildings, to have heating floor just in standard, not something that it was just to put a bigger elevator of 6 persons rather than put those 4 persons, but only 2 can step in. So there are small things that if you do step by step, you improve. And if you go to New York or other cities or other countries in the world, you can learn every day something, and you can replicate it to your country. It's not hard to do it.
Thank you, Beatrice. And going back to Craig now, you have so many projects, and I admire you a lot because you're always in step with everything and maybe one step ahead. What's special about what you do?
Well, you know, part of what Kent was talking about earlier is you got to have incentive, right? So it's probably about 6, 7 years ago when we said, you know what, maybe the ultra high end, how it's fluctuating, let's stick with something steady. The city gave incentives to developers to go to areas throughout the city and give you a 30-year tax abatement. So your property would have no tax. We're very little. We're building hundreds of units in the Bronx over the last 6, 7 years. The basis of what the tax was when you bought it, it was maybe a couple of houses that you tear down to build a building, might have been $1,000 a year. So you stay at the $1,000 a year for 30 years. So that in itself made a lot of people, wow, you know, that's a great incentive. So what did it do? It created thousands of buildings to be built in the Bronx, especially because the basis of the land was the cheapest in all of New York City, all the New York City boroughs. You could buy land, we were buying land for $40, $50 a square foot. Today, it's not much more. It's like 80, and we still have a tax abatement. Not as good. The 421A was the one that was phenomenal. But now they have other ones that they got a little bit smarter. They said, you know, the developers are, you know, they're making too much. We don't want them to make too much. So they cut back. They made us add a little more affordable housing in different ways. And, you know, basically 20 to 30% of the apartments that you build are affordable, and the rest could be free market. And it's created an amazing economy. I mean, you drive through the Bronx today, and everywhere you look, there's brand new, beautiful buildings. And they're all filled with affordable housing, because that truly is the workforce for Manhattan and the higher ends of New York. And as Kent was saying, this city only works by the people who work it, you know? And they need a place to live. You can't ask them to live in Pennsylvania, you know? They have to live within a 10, 15-minute subway ride of Midtown Manhattan. So we have great infrastructure. New York, I would say, probably has the greatest subway system in the world. It's efficient, it's fast, and having these tax incentives in the suburbs of, not the suburbs, the boroughs of the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, where land is extremely low, and you could do an affordable project and make it work, has just created a wonderful incentive for everybody. And it's given people who didn't have housing, homeless people, people that were on the lowest end of the socioeconomic status here in New York City, now have beautiful new housing. So it worked.
It sounds great, actually.
Yeah.
And how important, because in Europe this is very big, how important is sustainable building here in New York?
Well,
Sustainability, is it a big criterion or not?
It is, and it's mandatory today. You know, you have to meet certain energy codes. In the past, New York City Building Department didn't have an energy department. Now they have an energy department, and everything has to be approved before you get your permit and checked by a third-party special inspector. And to get your C of O, you have to have met all the criteria. Windows, your exterior envelope, everything about the building. And every building we're doing now, we have to actually have solar panels on the roof. Not to sustain the whole building, but a percentage of it. Yeah, so it's an expense, but it's a good expense. But one of the great things, you know, is people sitting here that would consider investing in New York, the tax incentives for these tax-abated buildings are still it's a great opportunity to buy in the fringe areas where you can still buy land at a low basis and build a great building. Yeah.
Thank you. And going back to Aaron now, and the tech angle, what types of prop tech solutions do you think have the greatest potential for adoption in our CE markets, including Romania, but not limited to? Let's treat Central Eastern European countries as one.
So, OANA, I think you talked about natural resources in Romania. I think there's one additional natural resource, which everybody knows who is from the country but may not recognize from outside, is the human capital, right? The human resources. I think that is very important to continue investing in, particularly the tech resources. I think it is a huge competitive advantage, especially with what's happened in Ukraine and in Russia and the brain drain from those markets, which were preeminent markets from a technology perspective. And I know Romania has been the beneficiary of some of that. I think there's a huge opportunity for that to be a continued growth engine for the market. So that natural resource needs to be honored. And with that, there's two letters that are very important. And it's not NY, it's AI, of course. And that is what's going to be happening to the Romanian market, similar to what we've seen here. The good news is, if you look to what's happening in New York, as you walk down the street, what can be replicated, what's been happening here from a prop tech and construction tech perspective is also can be replicated in Romania over time if we continue to invest. Service Titan went public over the last year, now $6 billion company. BuildOps became a $1 billion company. These are all companies that we have either invested in or looked at over the years. We just sold a company called Urbint Monday for $325 million. Our latest fund is 50% marked up above cost before closing out the fund. These are almost entirely being made on AI transformations in companies that are riding the wave of agentification of traditional businesses. Some of those are you know, the people who are fixing the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning within your buildings in Romania will have a chance to use some of this technology over time. And those are just as one example of something that we're already seeing here that will be playing out in smaller, more fragmented markets in the EU like Romania. So I think there's a lot to look to and a lot to be excited about, and it almost all revolves around AI. Right now, there's a big buying opportunity, and also for the real estate and construction and development firms that exist. We're seeing the most cutting-edge, large and mid-sized firms here in the U.S. starting to embrace agentification of their own business. The finding something in a document in some sort of resource, copying it, pasting it, editing it, and then distributing it, which is work that an administrator would do, you know, a support staff or a junior analyst. That work is now being delegated instead of to a human, but to a robot in the real estate space today. And these folks, I know, are already thinking about this and may even be using that. I think the challenge is to the Romanian businesses to take advantage of that local tech talent and start agentifying their own businesses using Harvey and other tools for legal. The same applies to us in real estate. We need to be embracing and automating and delegating to robots instead of humans, but in Romanian instead of English.
Thank you. And now my question for Bob is, we are trying to bring together let's say, some of the most important real estate investors, Romanians, next year here, and they are looking to buy, what would you advise them to buy? Let's say, I mean, no, not let's say, definitely they don't have anything here. What would you advise them? What would you tell them?
Well, I think they have to focus on one property type and really get to know it. I think it's very difficult to be an investor, and some people do it very well, but to buy everything across the board, I think focus on what you know. Maybe in Romania they know hotels or they know retail, but I think, as I mentioned, the market today is very, very bifurcated into the sectors that are doing well and the sectors that aren't. I would say that as of today, our retail sector is very, very strong. It started to get negatively impacted before everything else did. So generally, retail rents have stopped going down. Retail leasing activities picked up, and investor demand for over a year now has been back. And I remember a year ago, I got a call from an investor saying, "Hey, Bob, what retail properties do you have for sale?" I almost fell on the ground because I hadn't gotten that call in 5 years. But retail is doing well. The hotel market is absolutely on fire in New York. We have 130,000 had 130,000 hotel rooms. 30,000 of them are no longer available to be rented for a variety of reasons. But the ADRs are up, occupancies are up, hotels are doing fantastically well. We're starting to see some big trades in the hotel space. The land is definitely on the upswing. Land values are going up. And in office and multifamily, which are our two biggest markets, the office sector, I think, is very misunderstood. Class A new construction office is doing really well, and tenant demand is good, and values are strong. The B and C office sector still has not hit bottom. Every time we think it's hit bottom, the next transaction comes out at an even lower price, and buildings are selling for what they were selling for 25 years ago on a price per foot basis. So that, if you're a contrarian, you might say, hey, now's the time to buy this, let me hold on and wait for things to get better. And then in our apartment building space, as I mentioned, the free market apartment buildings doing really well. Cap rates are starting to go down. Rents are way up. But our rent-regulated space, I don't think has hit bottom yet, and I don't think it will. The problem with our apartment building market is that most of the buildings are what I refer to as zombie buildings. Somebody paid $40 million for the building, very conservatively got a $20 million mortgage. The building's worth $14 or $15 million today. And so the owner doesn't have any incentive to invest in it, doesn't even want it, wants to give the keys back to the lender. The lender doesn't want to come anywhere near the keys because of all the liabilities associated with those buildings, and they don't want to invest in the building, so the building's an orphan. Nobody wants it. Nobody has incentive to invest in it. Nobody has incentive to own it. And so there has to be a repricing within that sector. I think that we will see a day when the lenders say, all right, we have to suck it up. We're really insolvent, and we have to face the music and admit that we're out of business. But just sell all this stuff at 20 cents on the dollar or 25 cents or whatever that market clearing price is going to be, and recalibrate what the value of our rent-stabilized housing stock is. But I will tell you that many of the lenders that are still hanging on by a fingernail will be out of business when that day of reckoning comes, because our regional banking system, and particularly the lenders that were very actively involved lending on rent-regulated housing, are completely insolvent. Not to leave on a down note, but this is the market.
There's an opportunity in every situation. So I'm going to ask Kent if, let's say, that day of reckoning comes, where do you see the opportunity in that?
Well, I agree with Bob. The first thing, if I was a foreign investor, I would come in and I'd find something that has upside to it, which I think is retail, and it has the least amount of work involved, right? So I would be buying retail condominiums all over the city right now. You receive one, you get one or two checks from your tenants, and you pay out a couple checks a month, and it's relatively straightforward and non-complicated, and it's a great way of getting into New York. So I'm surprised you said that, but I happen to agree with you 100% on that one. I think that the more complicated one is residential to come in because of the complications with, you know, you've got people living there, but it's a very stable environment. I think that residential is a great play. I think right now, if you wanted to roll your sleeves up and do some work and partner with a local partner, buying some commercial property, B and C buildings, and converting over to residential, I think is a very good play. I think the Class B market of commercial is stabilizing and actually getting better. You know, the utilization of office space. So you've got vacancy, occupancy, and the piece of the occupancy. How much is it utilized? How many people go to work every day in occupied buildings? We're back to pre-COVID area in New York City. So I think that's a strength for us. And so I think that some of the B building investments are a good investment right now in the commercial sector, and selectively looking at converting buildings into residential is a strong market. You know, we're not, you know, the New York City in the past 5 years produced roughly 11,400 new condominium and co-op units, right? Total. That's all we built. Of that, only 4,000, or roughly 37%, are not yet sold. So there's just no product here in residential. We've got another 2,000 units that are just starting construction right now, and then you have less than 1,000 planned units. So, I mean, there's 1,414 under construction and about 2,000 planned units. So there's nothing being built on the for-sale marketplace. The residential rental, you know, there's product, but it's very tough to go out and build. So again, if you can get into that marketplace, it's a little more complicated, but I think it's a very, very good, safe place to invest.
And just to tag on to what Ken said about the conversion market of office to resi, and to what Craig said earlier about the fact that incentives are very, very meaningful. You know, I think the current 485X tax abatement program is a horrible program. It's misguided. It tried to appease a wide variety of people, and it ends up appeasing nobody. We've had 32 building permits issued since 485X went into effect. They've all been for buildings under 100 units, so you don't have to meet the wage requirements that are required. But 467M, which is the tax abatement for converting a non-residential building to residential, is extraordinarily compelling. You get refunded 100% of your real estate taxes during construction for up to 30 months, and then you get a 90% reduction in your real estate taxes for 35 years. That's why today there are 57 office buildings that are being converted from office to residential. That's 23.7 million feet of offices that are being converted, that are going to be a slew of apartments, and, you know, hopefully add to some of that supply that we're dearly missing.
Which, ironically, I think is going to help the commercial market, not because you're taking supply out, which you are, but also because the people that are going to be living in those buildings don't want to reverse commute out. So it's going to force a lot more companies to stay in Manhattan and grow in Manhattan and or open back up in Manhattan. So that'll be, you know, a very good benefit.
Wow, that's very impressive and interesting for us because we don't know many of these details. So I just have one last question for each of you, please. What's the thing that you most fear in the upcoming year in your activity?
Did you say most fear or most here?
No, let's stick with fear.
Fear.
Whoever wants to go first.
I'll start. I think that I think our political climate is something that gives me a little bit of fear, only because when you have markets like our residential apartment building market for regulated apartments is more highly, its performance is more highly correlated to public policy than supply and demand. That's not good. And it looks like we will have a continuation of that if Mamdani gets elected. A lot of what he espouses, he has absolutely no control or influence over. 80% of his policies are controlled by the state legislature, not the mayor of New York. But there could be an impact. But I think that public policy has gotten to the point where it's impacting our market so strongly. I'm concerned about what those policies might or might not be. That's my biggest fear moving forward.
Thank you. Aaron?
I think most people that you will talk to in my world are concerned about a bubble in AI pricing for the large language models and foundational models. The picks and shovels of everything that the tech companies were investing in are built on top of. And I would say that's probably the most pervasive fear. But I share your concern. I think politically right now, the macro is much more frightening because I don't see it as plausible that this is as much of a tech bubble as we've seen in previous cycles. I think there could be some real pressure on the US dollar. The housing market is still very difficult. A lot of our tech companies that are requiring mortgage technologies and others that have transaction volume as one of their main growth drivers are still struggling. There's a lot that can go wrong, and it's a pretty terrifying moment for international growth into the United States. So that's personally me versus what I hear the most.
Thank you. Beatrice?
While New York receives a lot of incentives to do things here, in Bucharest we were blocked for a few years due to our mayor. So my biggest concern is that we won't have elections for the city hall too soon, and we will have a huge issue with the mayor because we don't know what is going to happen. And I really do strong believe that at the moment our governments will understand that they have to let Bucharest to evolve and to be, because it's a beautiful city with a lot of opportunities. Finally they will understand, because I'm positive anyway, and we will have this type of incentives. Today in our country you cannot even get a building permit. What about incentives? And regarding the opportunities, I just have to mention that people in Bucharest, they are not even used to, Romania actually, to this kind of reconversion. We are not used to that. We do a reconversion right now, for example, and it's very hard to sell before completion because they don't understand why things are changing there. And also, it's again another opportunity. For example, in Romania, the high-rise, it's a little bit of problem from the people because they usually want to live at the ground floor, first floor, second floor. They don't want to go on top. So you have to understand it's a very young market in the end. So I'm afraid about what is going to happen in Bucharest because we don't have a mayor right now. But what I know for sure is that it's a huge opportunity for this city to be developed, because we still have, for example, factories in the middle of the city that have to be moved outside the city. So we have from 20 hectares to 5 hectares of land which is available within the city, which means huge opportunities to create communities. So
is that mandated by the government? They're saying you must move out of these factories? Or is it just
this is what is, it's a trend. This is what happens because we do have a lack of infrastructure. It's improving.
Right.
So what happened after the communism is that the north part of Bucharest started to develop in terms of businesses. So all the office buildings are in the north. But everybody from all the cities in Bucharest are going to work in the north, you know? So all the office buildings are there, so there were not mixed-use developments in the city, so people could come to work closer to the way they were living, to the location they were living.
I have two. And they are mostly, one of them is related to the European space, and one, it's a global trend that it's more and more obvious, and these are facts. On the European level, I see that the policies coming from Brussels tend to transform the European Union space into a non-productive consumption space only. Basically, they have very ambitious targets that kill industry, kill production. So the European market looks that is going to become in the next 20 to 30 years a consumption market only. So totally dependent on Asia, the States, and the other emerging areas around the globe. And my second concern is that I notice a decrease in the appetite of people to work. They want more time for their personal life, for their hobbies, for their passions, for their pleasures. And somebody in a panel here earlier said that we'll see this huge passover of wealth of I don't know how many trillion, billion, whatever, because the boomers are on their way out. Where we are today because of the hard work of the boomers and of the fact that these are generations of people who are willing to work 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day for the work itself and eventually get a reward at the end of life, which now, you know, the life work expectancy prolongs year by year everywhere. And I am concerned about that because I am concerned also that no matter how high and mighty AI is, AI won't be able to totally replace this human appetite for work.
Thank God they cannot.
Especially as some people say, Harvey and Legora can do a lawyer's job.
Not yet. Craig?
Yeah, so I think two things. One is for everyone that's here thinking about New York and investing in New York, I think it's important you know we have the leading candidate for mayor who wants to change democracy. He's not happy with democracy, and we live in the greatest democratic country in the world, the strongest, and we are the greatest, strongest city in this country. So is there a possibility this guy would win? Yes. Is it concerning? Yes. But in many ways, no. There's been terrible mayors in the past in New York, and they come and go, and this guy has made promises that he can't fulfill. And people are stupid, some people, but they're not that stupid. When they see the promises that he made to them don't get fulfilled in the first year, the second year, I think someone like that would fall on its face. But it's not over yet. He has not won. There's a good chance maybe he won't. But if he does, I don't think there's anything to worry about as far as an investment criteria for investing your money in this city. This is the greatest city in the world. We have, it's the epicenter of finance, of fashion, of the theaters. I mean, you name it. New York is the center hub of the greatest things. It will always be, I believe. It's a very safe place. A lot of our investors that have invested with us in the past are investing cash, not borrowing money, but cash you're sitting on because they want to get it in this country and they want to see it grow or hold. So if a project doesn't do as well as it was supposed to, they don't mind sitting and holding the real estate with you. The other biggie I see of concern for us is interest rates. We have a president of our country who's a real estate person as well, and he's very bullish on trying to get interest rates down. He fights and fights. It's not going down as fast as we want, but it's going down. But that is a concern for several buildings that we have that are coming due in the next year or two. You know, we're turning 3-4% interest rates into 6, so it's a double. So you talk about a $100 million building is worth tens of millions less just based on the loan, on the money you can borrow. So it's concerning, but I think we're going in the right direction. I think things are happening, and our interest rates will slowly creep down. And I think whatever happens with our mayor is intelligent people will persevere. I think we have a strong, great city of a lot of caring people that care about the longevity of the city.
Thank you.
For me, on a macro basis, it's a very simple thing, and that's the chaos in Washington, which breeds chaos in the world. And I think that whether you are from a Republican Party or Democratic Party, it's irrelevant. I think that, in my personal opinion, that we've got an administration that is not playing by a set of rules that we've established over 240 years in our country's history. And that breeds insecurity, it breeds non-consistency, and that is very, very difficult for the business world. So if you're advocating for, you know, whatever policy it is. Everybody's entitled to a policy, and you're entitled to advocate for that policy, but it usually, up until recently, has been based on a set of guidelines and a set of fundamentals and a set of consistent laws that we've all agreed to. So, you know, you can push one side, you can push the other side, but we all played within basically the same sandbox, and we were able to have certain predictions and understanding of where it is. I think that's thrown out right now. We're pushing the envelope on a host of different things, which is now getting settled in our court systems, which just is unnecessary. We know what the rules and regulations are of how to abide by the way people legislate and the way they administrate our country, and I think that's being thrown out, and that creates real havoc in there, and it goes into the business world. You know, we've got, you know, we're torturing ourselves in that. So I think that's a very big concern. I'd like to be able to believe that, you know, at some point that ends, you know, and hopefully that there's some rules and guidelines that it will not continue. But without that, you've got an unpredictable world, and it's damaging us very badly. You could take a look at Sweden as a great example. Sweden just canceled 4 months ago one of the largest military contracts in the United States, in the history for the United States, on our F-35s, and they scrapped them. Jordan just scrapped all of their aircrafts that they were going to buy and went into Sweden and went there. Canada just scrapped their F-35s that they were going to go buy from us. So those are 20, 30-year contracts that have real stability and also put us in the world. And that's just one little small piece. And so I think that we're you know, hurting ourselves in that respect. And I think just changing the imbalance of what common, organized predictability about the U.S., which is how we are able to get people to come in here to work, to live, and invest. And so I think that hopefully will settle itself.
Thank you so much for these unfiltered, very honest opinions, helping us to better navigate, I don't know, the world we live in at present. If you ask me, I think predictability is gone, not because of Washington, but because it's gone. And we have to adapt. We've been doing that since 2020, reinventing. I hate the word resilience, but we need to be resilient. So thank you so very much for your input, for your ideas, for being here. Please don't forget that my colleagues will come to get you, to fetch you for the photo session. And see you again next year. Thank you and God bless.